Hey, what's up? The following is an interview with the researcher Vincent Lebot. I do not really know his credentials. I just know that in the Kava world, he's seen as like tip-top researcher. He's been doing this quite literally for decades, and every person who I meet who's really into the Kava world knows his name. We talk about the history of Kava, we talk about the culture of Kava, we talk about the chemistry of Kava. This video has a lot of information, and the only thing I suggest is we reference his paper called Use of SSR Markers and FTIR Chemometrics to Assess the Nobility of Kava Cultivars from the Pacific. I know that sounds like a crazy title that's like not digestible. I promise you, if you have the time reading it, it's not that scary. It actually will give you a lot of information on the history, culture, and chemistry of Kava. And to translate the title, they're basically saying we found another method to test the nobility of Kava. That's it. It's just that.
When did domestication start, and is there the oldest cultivar?
Sorry, one more thing. All the captions could have a ton of typos in it. It's just AI. I did not hand type this shit.
Okay, based on what the archaeologists are telling us, the first people settled Vanuatu 3,000 years ago.
Okay.
Obviously, they came with their bananas, taros, yams on their voyaging canoes, but not with Kava, because Kava was not domesticated in the Solomons. They came from the north. But in Vanuatu, like in the Solomons, we have a wild species which grows everywhere in the northern part of Vanuatu, not in the south, which is called Piper vishmanii, which is the only species on Earth which is sharing Kavalactones with Piper metisticum. In fact, Piper metisticum is a taxonomy artifact because it was first described by Solander, who was a botanist traveling with Captain Cook in Tahiti. And then described again by Forster, who was another botanist traveling with Captain Cook during his second voyage in Port Resolution in Tana. He collected a cultivar.
Okay.
He described a cultivar, not the wild species. And much later on, the Germans, the Vishman expedition, described Piper vishmanii in PNG.
So Piper vishmanii is separate from Piper metisticum and Piper wishmanii.
They're the same. They are what we call conspecific. They are taxonomist artifact or synonyms, if you prefer. But basically, they are the same species. One is the wild ancestor. The other one is the cultivated forms. But now Piper metisticum is so important economically that we prefer to refer to Piper metisticum, especially as within Piper metisticum, genetically, we have different groups. And we can differentiate based on their DNA, the nobles from Vanuatu, the nobles from Polynesia, from the 2 days from Vanuatu, and even from so-called Piper metisticum from PNG, but I'm not sure that they are really Piper metisticum. We need to... The taxonomy of the Piper species is very, very complex because the flowers are tiny. They're very, very small. In fact, what we call flowers are not flowers. They're just a catkin or a spadix with hundreds of small flowers on it.
Okay.
So it's very difficult to have an accurate identification, but there are some very good taxonomists. And we did our homework, and we are convinced that the two, Piper vishmanii and Piper metisticum, are basically the same binomial. They're synonyms, except that one is the improved type. So to come back to your question, we think that after the arrival of settlers here in Vanuatu,
That's a Lapita?
Lapita, or their maybe 1,000 years ago, after the first landing of the Lapita, they were not truly Lapita anymore. We don't know. I mean, the archaeologists know that better than me. They were probably different canoes coming from different places, not only from Taiwan.
Yeah.
I mean, they were mixed already. So these people started to play with their flora, domesticate local trees, domesticate the local plants, and finally domesticated Piper vishmanii and turn it into a cultivar, or many, many different cultivars of Piper metisticum, which is basically morphologically identical, except that it is much smaller.
Wait, I thought that's contradictory to the one I thought. So you're saying Piper, you said the
Vishmania?
Vishmania.
Vishmani.
Vishmani is, that's the true origin of Kava,
Metisticum.
not Piper. With,
Metisticum.
oh, maybe.
Which mine came before.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I read your pronunciation is different than what I thought it was. Now I understand. Thank
It's
you.
the same.
Okay.
It's the same. The Vishmani or Vishmani came naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And was
That's
here.
not sterile. That's still seed.
Yeah,
Okay.
it can produce seeds. I analyze the seeds. That's fertile and that grows naturally, spontaneously.
Is that the same? Is that synonymous with when people say wild kava? Are they talking about?
No.
So that's a different. Okay.
Wild Kava is Macropiper latifolium, which is a different genus. No Kavalactones in it. It has nothing to do with Piper. It's a Macropiper genus.
But it
So,
looks the same.
when you are used to it, it's
No.
quite different.
Yes.
But what we call wild Kava is in no way related to Kava. It's completely different. It has no relationship whatsoever with Kava.
And people have never drunken that. You don't want to drink that.
No, you cannot drink it. In fact, there is a molecule called beta-azarone, which is a depressor of the central nervous system. We use it as fish poisoning to fish. You squeeze the roots, you throw them in a hole in the river, and you will see the fishes coming up, and it's poison. So it has nothing to do with Kava. Wild Kava has nothing to do with Kava. It's
That's fascinating.
that's a different genus, okay? The ancestor is Piper vishmanii or Piper vishmanii. If you look at it, you will see it's very similar, except that it's an erect type. It can grow very high, it's very tall. And from this one, which has Kavalactones, we have myth and legend explaining the domestication process.
The rat.
Yes,
myth.
exactly. So it was fairly recent. I think it was maybe 1,000 or 2,000 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, it is a fairly recent domesticate. But the selection intensity was very high because basically what the old farmers, not the young ones, but the old farmers were doing, they were uprooting a plant, burying the cuttings of this plant in the hole left by the harvest of the root system,
Okay.
going down to the village, drinking the kava. If the kava was not good, they forgot about the cuttings. So each harvest of individual plant was basically a selection.
And is it possible that like each cultivar is like maybe selected by a certain area?
Oh yes, each area is selecting its own.
Oh, so okay, wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah.
Melo Melo is from a certain area because
Yes,
they.
Melo just after independence was unknown in Pentecost or in Santo, unknown. It was just from Ambaye. Same with Borogu. We did a survey very soon after independence in 81 or 82, and we knew which cultivar was where exactly, in which proportions. But at that time, cultivars were not traveling much, and all were known under a vernacular name. Nowadays, the situation is changing very rapidly. Unfortunately, Bislama is renaming some varieties, which is a catastrophe, because they will call a 2-day Kava with different Bislama names,
Uh-huh.
and we don't know what they are. But
So you don't know what a 2-day is anymore.
exactly when you call them under vernacular names, you know exactly that it is a 2-day, because for someone who is not used to it, it's quite difficult to differentiate morphologically 2-day from noble. Once you know them properly, it's easy, but you need some experience.
Okay. You really are. Wow. Okay.
I knew you'd like him.
You're a proper nerd.
Go ahead.
Okay. You said in the paper the most interesting Kavalactone is Kavain. Why do you say that?
By far, it has been well documented because what consumers or drinkers want basically is drink kava and within a few minutes have the relaxing feeling.
Okay.
And Kavain acts very, very rapidly in the auxiliary nervous system. Basically, it's a muscular relaxant. It works on the spinal cord.
Is it GABAergic?
No, not demonstrated yet.
Okay, got it.
It's not well documented. But we know that this particular compound, this analyte, works very, very fast and is metabolized very fast. In other words, you drink Kava, a good variety rich in Kavain, you have the good feeling that you are looking for, the muscular relaxant feeling, and within an hour it's gone. It's finished. So you go to bed, and next day you are completely fresh.
What's the half-life? Is it like 3 hours or 2 hours? Or?
Maybe not. Maybe it's about 3 to 6 hours. But I mean, it is when we analyze the urine, it's disappearing very rapidly. On the other hand, some Kavalactones, like dihydrokavain and dihydromethycin, they work very slowly. So you drink Kava, you are not sure that you are feeling something. You drink another shell, and the next day you have a terrible.
And that's why the 2 days, like people say, it gets you messed up too, because they keep drinking it, gets them loaded.
Yes, and the next day you have a terrible fatigue and a hangover. It's just that the chemotype is not suitable for daily consumption. So, Kavain, I mean, all noble varieties are very rich in Kavain, and this is what consumers want. But they come, it never comes alone. It comes in a cocktail with all the other molecules. They're all there. It's just like they are in small proportion.
You said 96% is the 6 Kavalactones you listed. What percentage is Kavain?
In some good noble varieties, between 20-30%.
Oh, okay. So it's still there's a lot of other ones doing a lot of work.
Yes, they're still there. But the Kavain is really the one you are looking for. But we knew that a long time ago, and some European pharmaceutical companies decided, and a Californian company called Riker Laboratories, they synthesized Kavain. So they produce some compounds with the synthetic Kavain. But for some reason, Kavain alone is not producing the same effect than Kavain with the other ones.
Really?
Yeah. So the pure Kavain, the synthetic Kavain, which was sold in Switzerland under the name Kava Form, or in California.
Pharmaceutically or
yeah,
Okay.
pharmaceutically, is not. I mean, the effect is non-comparable to the beverage. But now it can come from what we call the bioavailability. In other words, if you take Kavalactones in a pill, they are not readily bioavailable. If you absorb them as a beverage, it's just like alcohol. They go through the membrane very rapidly, and they are bioavailable. So lots of products in the market under the form of pills or capsules are not good products, because it's not a good return on investment. They are expensive, and you don't get what you are looking for. You better buy a good shell of Kava, and that is bioavailable.
Yeah.
So basically, people have been experimenting with Kavalactone for millennia or hundreds of years. They don't smoke Kava, they don't boil it. They do what is the smartest way to prepare Kava.
Yeah, they figured it out. If it was better to smoke it,
try
they'd
and
smoke it.
error, and that's what is the best way to do it. The cold water extraction.
Cold water.
Cold water. For coffee, it's hot water. For Kava, it's cold water extraction.
So that brings to the temperature debate of Kavalactone breaking down. What temperature does it break down?
Oh, no. They are very, very robust. Their melting point is about 110,
Okay.
120 degrees. They are very robust molecules. But every drinkers will tell you that in the summer we feel Kava much better than in the winter. When you are cold, you don't feel Kava, or when Kava is too cold. So because it's Kavalactones are resinoids, they are like a thick oil. They're like a paste. They are not very fluid.
It's an emulsion in the water, correct?
It's not an
soluble.
emulsion because it's not stable. It's what we call a suspension.
Okay.
In other words, you need to stir up the tanoa or the bowl all the time. If not, they will rest down, and you will drink just the supernatant, would be basically water, and the Kavalactones will be at the bottom. It's not a stable emulsion. It's a suspension.
Got it.
So, but they are non-soluble in water, and depending on the temperature, they are more or less bioavailable. Your body is around 37 degrees. If you can offer Kava 37 or 30 degrees, it's good enough. But if you serve it at 10 degrees, the transit will not be the same. So very cold cava is not suitable.
Okay.
And if it's hot like coffee, you just sip it. You don't want to sip it because you want to have it in one go so that you have enough cavalactones going together through the membrane into the bloodstream to produce the effect you are looking for.
Okay.
So that's why you want cold water, cold kava. So basically what the people have been doing for centuries is rational.
Okay.
Let me double check. It's all good. Oh, perfect. Okay, sweet.
This is gold.
This is it. Yeah.
I learned something today.
So, okay, age of plant. So, I've heard that 3 to 5, and then I also have spoken to some people who say 5 years plus is pretty much like the older they get, the more potent they get per, let's say, gram of actual root. What's up with that?
We did some studies, and apparently after 24 or 36 months, cavalactones content start to level.
Got it.
Okay, so basically as a percentage of the dry matter. So basically the percentage of cavalactone per hundreds of grams of roots starts to level. But the percentage of dry matter in the total biomass continue to increase. Kava is a root crop, so basically the vegetative parts, the leaves are like solar panels which are capturing solar energy and stocking it into the root system. So the greater is the leaf area, the higher is going to be the yield. So a big kava is going to produce a big yield. But after 3 years, basically, minimum, you have your cavalactone content, which is going to be leveling all the way to 10 or 15 years, except that the dry matter content is going to increase and kava will be easier to treat. Because when kava is too young, it's poor in dry matter and it rots away rapidly after the harvest. When it's old, it's rich in dry matter and basically it's easier to handle or to transport. Remember that in Vanuatu we are dealing with a fresh product. Kava comes fresh from the outer islands. Imagine that it was as fresh as a green lettuce. We will not be able to drink it because it will rot away very rapidly, because sometimes it has been traveling for 2 weeks. Because it reached because before it reached Port Vila. So old kava travels better than young kava, and this is the problem we are having nowadays. The demand is so high that when I visit the market, the kava market here in Anabru, I can see that the stumps are very young.
Because they're just trying to like capitalize on the money.
Exactly. They need. I mean, we have inflation in Vanuatu. People need money, so they are harvesting younger and younger. But this is not good. The ladies here are complaining. They call it cucumber, because when they cut it, it's
Watery. And
it's very watery, and they have almost 50% of loss. So they buy a bag, and when they empty the bag, they can see that everything is already rotting away. This is typical of young kava. Not enough dry matter content. But the cavalactone percentage per 100 grams of dry matter is already there. It's just that it's better for trade to trade with 5 years, 6 years, 7 years old.
yeah, just
kava.
for just the fact that it's just more robust.
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Yes.
this is a more historical question. You said the Lapita
Yes.
could be the first. I always understood is this area of the world was through 60,000 years ago that out of East Africa, and that's how it was populated. So that's contradictory to what I thought.
No, what I understand from archaeologists is that the Australian plate was colonized about 45,000 years ago by the ancestor of the Aborigines, by Homo sapiens coming from Southeast Asia. But the ancestor, I mean, the oldest traces that we have in Vanuatu, they are Lapita. We have that from the pottery.
Got it.
And these people came from Taiwan. Taiwan, going through the Bismarck archipelago and arriving here. But I'm not an archaeologist, but you can find that on the internet.
Yeah, yeah.
So from Vanuatu, then they started to go to Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, all the way up to Hawaii and down to New Zealand. But when you look at their morphology and phenotype, they look quite different than us. If you walk down the street in Nuku'alofa, people don't really look like Nivans. I mean, they look different.
Yeah,
So there were probably different canoes involved.
yeah.
So, I mean, we will never know exactly because we cannot go back to double check. But this is what the archaeologists are doing. They're
Okay.
trying to understand the history of Vanuatu and other countries in the area. But that's what I understood.
Okay. How am I doing on time? Am I doing good? You can kick me out.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. I've heard 2-day has. Oh, this is a hot button topic. So I've heard 2-day has high level of flavonoids, also associated with the liver, the toxicity of the liver, but it seems like it's more the dihydro compounds that you named, the 2 dihydro compounds. Which one? So what's the deal with it?
Both are there.
Okay.
Today, Kava and the Kavars we analyzed from PNG, they are characterized by high dihydrokavain and dihydromethysteine levels,
Okay.
which are the Kavalactones that we don't like
Yep.
because they metabolize very slowly,
Mm-hmm.
and high flavokavins A, B, and C levels.
Okay.
Both. This last group is giving the particular bright yellow color to the roots. They are flavonoids.
That's what they call it, yellow.
They are pigments.
Mm.
But they are controversial. Some people claim that they are cytotoxic towards cancer cells,
Mhm.
but usually something which is cytotoxic can be cytotoxic towards other cells too.
Yeah.
So we don't know. Obviously, they were not the object of human selection, because we can see that today, when we did the surveys in the early 80s, today were really minor. I mean, nobody was growing a lot of today. When the so-called Kava boom started, farmers started to plant today because they noticed that they were growing faster and they had a higher yield.
That makes sense.
But this is, if you open a Kava bar and you put today Kava serves only here, nobody will come and drink.
Yeah.
Okay, because this is not something people were drinking. They knew it was unsuitable for daily consumption.
Was it ever popular?
No.
No. Everyone's always hated it.
Yeah, yeah. The first who started to get an interest on today were the Germans, because they had an agronomist doing experiments here on a farm. They subcontracted and they noticed that today was growing faster. And
So it's just a profit thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
because they were working for extracts
Mm.
to produce acetonic extracts. But if you serve today as a Kava powder for the beverage market, you lose your market. Nobody wants to drink that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And acetone, I've heard that's a real, people really don't like acetone extracts because it'll pull out a lot of the.
Well, it's extracting everything.
Got it.
So it will extract Kavalactones and flavokavins and alkaloids if they are there. Everything which is there will be extracted with acetone. It's a very, very powerful solvent. So it's not really smart. I mean, from a commercial point of view, if you use acetone, it's good because you get the maximum out of your dry mass. But if the quality control is not enforced properly, you are taking the risk to extract something else.
Is ethanol just focusing on Kavain?
Ethanol is not extracting as much flavokavin, so the suspicious compounds are under some sort of control, but still it's extracting all solvents basically at different degrees are extracting a lot, but acetone is the most powerful solvent.
Okay.
So basically, as soon as you use a solvent, you are dealing with a product which is completely different than Kava. And this is a problem we have in Germany because they are calling Kava something that they are producing in Germany, which is not Kava. Germans don't drink Kava.
Yeah.
They have no idea what it is. They drink beer, wine, they never drank Kava. But when they had these so-called hepatotoxicity cases, they were saying that Kava was the culprit.
But
Kava
they were
was not
doing
involved.
Kava. Yeah.
Kava was not involved. What was involved was pill capsules produced in Germany without quality control, with suspicious dry matter imported from God knows where, or bought from a trader or whatever, and extracted with acetone.
Yeah.
And then they called that Kava. So in fact, they were misusing the word Kava because in Vanuatu we have a legal definition for the word Kava, which is the traditional beverage produced by cold water extraction of the underground organs of the plant.
Fibromysis.
So, and that's engraved in the Kava Act passed in Parliament in December 2002. But the Germans are misusing the word, and now if you go to the internet, everybody tells you that Kava is potentially hepatotoxic, which is a lie.
Yeah.
We drink Kava here on a daily basis. Half of the population drinks, half doesn't drink.
Mm-hmm.
Statistically, if we had a side effect, it will be very easy to detect it. In fact, the population of Vanuatu is booming, doubling every 20 years. It's a very healthy population, and there is no side effect whatsoever. So, and no lab in the world will be able to do the real-time experiments that we are doing on a daily basis here in Vanuatu. So, but we are drinking Kava. We are not consuming pills or capsules. If you put caffeine in a pill, it's very dangerous. But you cannot call it coffee.
Yeah. Yep.
Coffee is the hot water extraction of the powder. And the consumer knows that if you abuse coffee, it can be potentially dangerous. Kava is the same. Either you have to drink it in moderation, but it's a benign substance. We know it's harmless. We know. But we had some problems in the past in northern Australia where the Aborigines were abusing Kava. They were also misusing it. So they were mixing it with alcohol and so on. But
How are
Kava
they
per
abusing
se.
it?
Well, they were importing the powder, encouraged by the churches and the Women Association because it was a good substitute for alcohol, except at the end of the day they were mixing it with alcohol.
Yeah, yeah.
And concrete.
Yeah. And now we have some problems in the States too, where we understand that people are mixing Kava with other substances. And this is dangerous because imagine that a teenager drives into a school bus after drinking Kava. Even if he had 3 glasses of whiskey after that, the culprit will be Kava. It will not be the whiskey.
Yep.
Because alcohol is part of the Western culture, and the suspicious product is always what we call the alien poison. Something coming from the other side of the world is dangerous. So we have to be very careful that people don't misuse it, because as you were saying, many children go to school thanks to Kava, and in Vanuatu at least it's very serious business for all the community, all the islands, all the families. But it's difficult for us in Vanuatu to control what teenagers are doing in the US. So that's why we are writing books, that's why we are writing papers, in order to push the information through, to make sure that we are educating people, just like the Western world was educated to coffee.
Yep.
And
From East Africa.
if you drink 5 espressos in a row, don't go and see your doctor saying that you don't feel well. I mean, you know that it's potentially dangerous.
Yeah.
You have been educated. So coffee is good, but don't abuse. Kava is good, but don't abuse. It's just a matter of education. So if people are educated properly, then the market will continue to grow, because it's a very healthy product.
Was there alcohol here before
Yes,
white people?
and in fact, just after independence, the father of the independence, Father Walter Linney, was a man Pentecost, from Pentecost.
A father.
And he pushed Kava as an alternative to alcohol. He was encouraged by churches, a women association.
So before white colonizers came, alcohol was already here.
Oh yes, I mean no, alcohol came with the colonization.
Got it. So it was just as far as like the relaxation substance or the leisure substance. It was kava here for like 1,000 years. at
Before
least.
the first, what we call the first contact, before
Cook.
Melanesian has a cook, kava was the only social beverage, social lubricant. People were not fermenting coconuts, were not fermenting sugarcane. They had no idea of what alcohol was. Then the European came, alcohol was introduced, and at independence it was a public health concern. People were abusing alcohol, and violence was here, and kava was seen as an identity, a marker of identity for sure, because the country was independent, but also as a good alternative to alcohol. And we don't have the problems that some of our neighbors have, thanks to kava.
Okay.
If you drink it in moderation, of course.
Oh, so in the paper you talk about how so you can visually, with a trained eye, visually tell a different cultivar from the stem, from the leaf, from the distance from the nodes.
Yes.
But you said what kind of makes it difficult to tell is that depending on soil or heat or water, it can affect all the other things.
Yes.
Does those other factors, non-genetic factors, contribute to the potency as well?
Yes, yes.
What is the biggest?
Soil fertility. Kava needs very high soil fertility and high solar radiation when the plant is mature. When the plant is young, it's a shade-loving plant. It needs lots of shade to start. So that's why agroforestry system. Sometimes I hear that the kava is destroying the forest. It's all crap. Kava needs the forest to start. If you plant kava in the middle of the football field here, it will never grow.
That's why it's like all within the jungle. It's never.
Yes, because it will never grow in full sun. So kava is protecting the forest, and the forest is protecting kava. Because if you start to grow kava in an open field, you will lose it. Okay, so it's a shade-loving plant. Because the ancestor is a plant from the forest, kava is from the forest. So you need agroforestry systems, but you need very rich soil, which is what we have in Vanuatu, thanks for the volcanic origin of the islands. Rich in organic matter, and you need to shed out progressively while kava is maturing. But you have to be very careful. I've seen in West Malekula some old kava dying in a day because they were sweating so much, and the leaf area is so big. Because remember, it's they're wilting. It's a human artifact. There is no taproot. You plant cuttings, and the root system doesn't go very far. Actually, it's right there around the plant, and the canopy can be very big. But if, for example, which happens sometimes when we have El Nino, you have kava in full sun during 3 months, or even 2 months, they die. Because they lose water so rapidly, and they cannot pump it, because the root system is not made for this. So it's really a plant that needs agroforestry system, good management of the solar radiation, and high fertility.
Okay. Good. I think the rest of it, honestly, different levels of Kavalactones in rhizome versus root are pretty much the same.
No. That's why in Fiji you have 3 different prices, and that makes sense. If you go to the market in Fiji, you buy waka, lewena, or kasa. Why do you have these 3 different prices? Because for the last 100 years already, we know that Kavalactones decrease from the lateral roots to the stem to the basal stems. So you have 3 different prices because basically, although you are buying 100 grams each time, the percentage of Kavalactones decreases when you go from the tiny roots all the way up to the basal stems. So waka, lewena, kasa, and the price.
So the most potent part is the tiny.
Yes.
Wait. So then why is eating the root, like meaty part, so popular here instead of the actual?
That's probably a mistake.
Interesting.
Yes, in Fiji they are
What
right.
about the skin
Yeah.
though? The skin on the roots, does that give you a bit of a dryness, a bit of a red eye, sort of?
Yeah, the skin on the root gives a dark color to the beverage, which is the problem we have in Numea, for example. They were educated with chips,
Light colour.
and they like light color.
Yeah.
But chips have a lower cavalactone content than the roots. But the roots, they produce a darker beverage.
But there's no like higher levels of flava.
No, if it's a noble variety, you don't have these flavokavins there.
Mhm.
And the alkaloids are not there if kava has been peeled properly. It's dangerous if it's not peeled. It has to be peeled.
Why does that have to be peeled?
Because the alkaloids are in the bark. Just like for many plants, the kava plant is producing toxins to protect itself from predators. So, but people, they know that in the traditional setup, they always tell you that they are peeling because if not, it's con, it's bitter.
Hmm.
It's like a green potato. You don't want to eat a green potato, and a potato which has been exposed to light.
Yeah.
You don't want to eat that. So it's same with kava. Everything which is exposed to light is potentially bitter because you have some metabolites that the plant is producing to protect itself. So you have to peel. The roots you don't have to peel because it's not exposed to light
Got it.
and it's buried under the ground, but they are darker in color, but they are much richer in Kavalactones, except that yield-wise, only 30% of the total yield is represented by the roots, and 70%
by mass.
by the stump. So that's why nowadays the young farmers, they just pull on the stump, and sometimes the small roots.
Leave all the roots.
But in Fiji, they have an incentive because waka is more expensive than lewena. So you will see farmers in Fiji extracting all the roots, and you will see long bundles of roots for sale in the market because there is a higher price.
Whoa. Oh my.
I'll make you some fresh root kava.
Okay. In Fiji, they do traditionally dry.
Yes.
So, is that? It's always said. I mean, people have always said like Fiji stuff is weaker.
No, it's the same kava. You can drink very powerful, strong kava in Fiji. It's just like they prefer to drink it very diluted.
Okay, got it. So drying doesn't actually lose potency necessarily.
No, it's changed the taste,
Okay.
and some molecules are disappearing. The volatile compounds are disappearing. So in Vanuatu, we drink something, a beverage which is chemically much diverse and richer than the dry kava because we drink it fresh.
Yeah.
It's just like you drink a fresh carrot juice, and then you produce carrot juice with dry chips of carrots.
Yeah.
It will not be the same.
Yeah.
So we have access to the fresh stuff.
Okay.
Fresh is always better.
Huh. And with people who are constantly drinking kava, I've heard that people who abuse it might get some dry skin.
Yes, yes.
So that is true.
No, it's true. It's true.
What is
It's,
that caused by?
dehydration and probably something on the derma. We call that a dermopathy. It's not well documented, but what is well documented is that it's due to abuse, and as soon as you stop drinking, it disappears.
Okay.
So we know that when you shake the hand of someone and it looks like you are shaking a piece of wood, you know that this guy...
He likes kava. You identified 36 different cultivars in the study, right?
Well, there are many more.
Got it.
They are the so-called noble varieties from
Mm.
Vanuatu, which are identified in the Kava Act and in the Codex Alimentarius FAO, WHO regional standards. They are well known. And then there are other varieties that are two-day or medicinal kava or poor varieties, which are not really the ones rich in Kavain that you want to drink on a daily basis. So we were looking at different groups, and we studied the best noble varieties that we know: Kelai, Melo Melo, Borogu. The worst two-day varieties that we know, Palisi, and all this.
Bamboo.
Yes, and then we know exactly how they are, and we can differentiate them genetically with DNA fingerprints.
Can you tell that a trained kava drinker or kava person tell a different variety from just the taste and the feeling? No.
No.
Okay. So it's just
Because the taste depends so much on post-harvest processing, peeling, and
interesting.
age, how long out of the ground.
yeah.
Okay. And this is just a nerdy genetic question. So it's decaploidy?
Yes, 10
That's-
sets of chromosomes.
That's insane. So
Yeah.
does that, because they're all clones,
Yes,
right?
they're sterile.
They're sterile, but with the decaploidy, like similar. It's like with bananas. The problem with it is that like there's no genetic diversity. So one bug comes, you're fucked.
It's very vulnerable.
It is. But
Yeah.
does the decaploidy, because of the increased like mutation chances, does that somehow diversify it a bit?
Because it's decaploids, because you have 10 sets of chromosomes, it's easier to fix a mutation when you see it.
Okay.
So basically, farmers were growing borougou, the green one, and then they found the red borougou. So you have borougou and borougou memea, or the white borougou and borougou temit. So they just select what they see as clones from clones from clones, and you have these mutations appearing. So it keeps on changing without genetic recombinations.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's you can find that in other plants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. Wow. I mean, yeah. This was epic. Is there anything you that you want to like?
No, I just want to say goodbye.
Yes. What don't you understand?